Have you ever watched your own family treat someone else like they mattered more than you? Not just once. Not just during birthdays or holidays. Every single day. My name is Emma Carter, and for 28 years, I believed that if I worked harder, loved my family more, and never complained, one day my parents would finally see my worth. I was wrong. The day my grandfather's will was read, my parents smiled proudly as they handed everything to my younger sister, Olivia. The family business. The lake house. The investments. Even the antique watch my grandfather had promised me when I was just 12 years old. I walked into that lawyer's office believing I was about to honor my grandfather's final wishes. I walked out realizing my own family had betrayed me. But what they didn't know was that they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Because they underestimated the one person who had learned everything about that business. Me. Growing up in Boston, everyone thought the Carter family was perfect. My father, Richard Carter, owned Carter Manufacturing, a company started by my grandfather more than 40 years earlier. My mother, Susan, loved telling neighbors how close our family was. And my younger sister, Olivia. She was everyone's favorite. If Olivia scored a B in school, my parents celebrated with dinner at her favorite restaurant. When I brought home straight A's, Dad barely looked up from his newspaper. But as the years passed, I realized the rules were different. I forgot to buy milk on the way home? You've always been so irresponsible. It didn't matter what actually happened. Olivia was always right. I was always wrong. The only person who treated me differently was my grandfather, William Carter. He founded the company with nothing more than a rented garage, one old truck, and a dream. He believed respect had to be earned. Every summer, while Olivia spent her vacations at the beach with friends, I chose to work beside Grandpa. He showed me every department. The warehouse. The accounting office. Customer service. Negotiations. Payroll. He believed that if I understood every job in the company, I would become the kind of leader employees could trust. Sometimes we'd stay after everyone else had gone home. He'd hand me a cup of hot chocolate and smile. Emma, he once said, people think business is about money. It's not. It's about people. If you take care of your employees, they'll take care of your customers. And if you take care of your customers, they'll take care of your future. Those words stayed with me forever. When I graduated from college with honors in business management, Grandpa was the first person to hug me. I'm proud of you, he whispered. I always knew you could do this. My parents congratulated me too. But only for a moment. Because Olivia had just announced she wanted to become an influencer. Suddenly everyone was talking about her dreams instead. That night, Grandpa found me sitting alone on the back porch. You deserved better today, he said quietly. I forced a smile. I'm used to it. He looked at me for a long moment. No. You should never get used to being invisible. Before he left, he placed his hand on my shoulder. One day, the truth always finds its way to the surface. At the time, I didn't understand what he meant. Years later, those words would change my life. After graduation, I joined Carter Manufacturing full-time. Not because my parents asked me to, because I genuinely loved the company. I arrived before sunrise, left after sunset, learned every process, solved problems, improved efficiency. Grandpa noticed everything. During board meetings, he'd quietly ask for my opinion before anyone else's. My father hated that. Olivia almost never visited the office. She said business was boring. Yet every family dinner ended with Mom saying the same thing. Olivia has such a bright future. I would smile politely. Inside, I wondered if anyone noticed I was helping keep the company running. Then came the phone call that changed everything. One cold November morning, my grandfather suffered a massive heart attack. By the time I reached the hospital, machines surrounded his bed. He looked weaker than I'd ever seen him. When everyone stepped out of the room to speak with the doctors, Grandpa motioned for me to come closer. His voice was barely above a whisper. Emma. There are things you don't know. You'll understand soon. He reached for my hand and squeezed it with surprising strength. No matter what happens, never stop fighting for what's right. Those were the last words he ever said to me. 3 days later, he was gone. And none of us knew that the real battle was only beginning. My parents gave my inheritance to my golden child sister. I took everything back. Part 2. The will that changed everything. 3 days after my grandfather's funeral, our family gathered inside the office of Harrison and Cole, the law firm that had represented my grandfather for decades. The atmosphere was painfully quiet. No one spoke. The only sound was the ticking of an old grandfather clock mounted on the wall. I looked around the room. My father sat confidently with his arm around my mother. Olivia scrolled through her phone as if this were just another boring appointment. I couldn't understand how she seemed so calm. Grandpa had built an entire lifetime of memories inside that company. To me, this wasn't about money. It was about honoring the man who had believed in me when no one else did. The office door opened. Attorney Michael Harrison walked in carrying a thick brown envelope. His expression wasn't what I expected. He looked uncomfortable. He greeted everyone politely before taking his seat. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began. "First, allow me to express my deepest condolences for your loss. William Carter was not only my client for over 30 years, but also my friend." Everyone nodded silently. He placed the envelope on the table. "Today we will read Mr. Carter's final will and testament." I took a deep breath. Whatever happened today, I promised myself I would respect Grandpa's wishes, even if they surprised me. The attorney adjusted his glasses and began reading. "My personal savings shall be divided equally among my immediate family." That seemed fair. "My collection of classic cars shall be donated to the National Transportation Museum." Exactly the kind of decision Grandpa would make. Then came the part everyone had been waiting for. As for Carter Manufacturing, the room became completely silent. Even Olivia finally looked up from her phone. "Ownership of Carter Manufacturing shall be transferred to." Before Attorney Harrison could finish, my father suddenly cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen," he interrupted with a smile, "I think before Michael continues, there's something we'd like to announce." The attorney froze. He looked confused. "So that everyone understands," my father continued, "Dad changed his plans shortly before his passing." My stomach tightened. Changed his plans? Grandpa never mentioned anything about changing his plans. Mom reached into her handbag and placed another folder on the table. "We have the updated documents." Attorney Harrison frowned. "I wasn't informed about any updated will." Dad smiled confidently. "Everything was handled privately." The attorney slowly opened the folder. His face changed. For the first time since entering the room, he looked genuinely shocked. He read the first page, then the second, then looked directly at my father. "I wasn't aware this document existed." Dad leaned back. "It does now." The room fell silent again. Attorney Harrison hesitated before speaking. "According to these documents, Carter Manufacturing is being transferred entirely to Olivia Carter." I felt like the air had been knocked out of my lungs. Olivia's eyes widened. "What?" she laughed. "Seriously?" Mom hugged her immediately. "Oh, sweetheart. Your grandfather always knew you were special." Dad stood proudly. "You've earned this." "Earned it?" Olivia hadn't worked a single full day inside the company. She didn't know our biggest clients. She couldn't explain our production process. She didn't even know the names of most employees. Meanwhile, I'd spent nearly 7 years helping Grandpa build that business. Attorney Harrison continued reading. "The lake house transferred to Olivia Carter. The investment portfolio transferred to Olivia Carter. The family vacation property in Maine. Every major asset, one after another, went to my sister." He reached the last page. "Emma Carter shall receive." He paused. "Grandfather William Carter's personal journals, his old toolbox, and $1. $1. For a moment, I honestly thought I'd misheard him. $1? After years of working beside Grandpa, after everything we'd shared, $1? My hand started shaking. I looked toward Attorney Harrison. He avoided my eyes. Something about his expression didn't seem right. It wasn't guilt. It was doubt. As if something about this document didn't make sense to him either. Dad broke the silence. "Well," he said cheerfully, "I guess that settles everything." Mom smiled at me. "I'm sure you're happy for your sister." Happy? My entire future had just disappeared. Olivia stood up laughing. "I can't believe I'm officially the owner." She hugged Dad. Then Mom. Neither of them even looked at me. I quietly gathered my bag. As I reached the office door, Attorney Harrison spoke. "Emma." I turned around. His voice was unusually careful. "Would you mind staying behind for just a few minutes after everyone leaves?" Dad immediately answered for me. "That won't be necessary." But the attorney looked directly at me. "It's important." For the first time that day, a tiny spark of hope appeared inside me. Maybe, just maybe, Grandpa hadn't abandoned me after all. My parents gave my inheritance to my golden child sister. I took everything back. Part 3. The secret my grandfather left behind. The conference room slowly emptied. My father walked out first, laughing with Olivia about how they were going to modernize Carter manufacturing. Mom followed behind them, already making plans for a celebration dinner. Not one of them looked back. Not one of them asked if I was okay. The heavy wooden door clicked shut. For a few seconds the room was completely silent. Attorney Michael Harrison let out a long breath and removed his glasses. "Emma," he said quietly, "I've known your grandfather for over 30 years. He trusted me with everything." I stared at him. "Then why did you read that will?" His face tightened. "Because legally I had no choice." "What do you mean?" He leaned forward. "Something about those documents doesn't feel right." My heart skipped. "What are you saying?" He lowered his voice. "Your grandfather updated his estate several times over the years, but he never once mentioned replacing me as his attorney. So when your father handed me those papers today, it was the first time I'd ever seen them. I couldn't believe what I was hearing." "Are you saying the will could be fake?" "I don't know. And I won't accuse anyone without proof, but your grandfather was meticulous. He documented everything. If he truly changed his mind, there should be a paper trail. And right now, hope. It was small, fragile, but it was there." Mr. Harrison stood and walked toward an old filing cabinet. From the bottom drawer, he removed a small sealed envelope. Across the front, written in my grandfather's unmistakable handwriting, were 5 words. "For Emma. Open if necessary." My hands trembled as I took it. "When did he give you this?" I asked. "About 6 months ago. He told me to keep it safe, and only give it to you if something ever seemed wrong." I carefully broke the seal. Inside was a handwritten letter. The paper smelled faintly of cedar, just like Grandpa's workshop. I began reading. "Dear Emma, if you're reading this, something has happened that I feared for a long time. You have always been the heart of this family, even when others refused to see it. You earned every lesson I taught you, every hour we spent together, and every responsibility I trusted you with. Never let anyone convince you that your value depends on their approval. If my final wishes are ever questioned, remember one thing. The truth is hidden where we built our future together. You'll know where to look. I love you. Grandpa." Tears rolled down my face. It wasn't because of the inheritance. It was because those words sounded exactly like him. He believed in me. Until the very end. But what did he mean? The truth is hidden where we built our future together. I repeated the sentence over and over. Then it hit me. The workshop. When I was a teenager, Grandpa and I had spent countless weekends restoring old machinery in the small wooden workshop behind the original factory. He used to joke that it was the only place where nobody interrupted us. Could that be what he meant? Mr. Harrison watched my expression change. "You figured something out." "I think I know where he wanted me to go." He nodded. Then don't waste any time. But be careful. If someone truly changed your grandfather's wishes, they may not want the truth to come out. That evening I drove to the old factory. Most of the lights were off. The small workshop still stood behind the main building. Dust covered the windows. The old lock was rusty, but my key still worked. As the door creaked open, memories came flooding back. The smell of wood. The workbench where we'd repaired engines together. The old radio that always played jazz on Saturday mornings. Everything looked exactly the way he'd left it. I slowly walked around the room. Nothing seemed unusual. Until I noticed something on the wall. Grandpa's favorite wooden clock. It had stopped at exactly 4:17. That wasn't normal. He always kept it running. Curious, I lifted the clock off the wall. Behind it was a small metal safe. My heart began pounding. I had never seen it before. There was no keypad. Only a 4-digit combination lock. I stared at it. What number would Grandpa have chosen? Then I smiled. 417. The exact time frozen on the clock. With shaking hands, I entered the numbers. Click. The safe unlocked. Inside was a thick folder. A flash drive. Across the top, in Grandpa's handwriting, were the words that changed everything. If you found this, they lied to you.